I am standing here in our 2025 house that we built to look old, and the heart of the home is the kitchen. It was the space that I devoted the most time and effort to designing and making sure it would work great for our family of 11 and for my home-based business where I create recipes and share them with the world. This is our kitchen, the heart of the home. Now, we designed this home to look like it was from the turn of the century, around 1900, give or take a few years. One thing that is very much not in keeping with history is that this kitchen is quite large. Now, if you live in an old house, you have a large kitchen, there's probably a good chance that that was renovated over the years. Maybe some rooms were combined. That was the case for the home I lived in previously, the farmhouse I lived in before the last house. And even though we tried to bring in a lot of original details, architectural salvage, lights, doors, and furniture, we knew that we wanted this kitchen to be large because we spend so much time in this modern day and age in the kitchen. Our lives center around this room. Now, I work directly with a company called Kennebec out of Bath, Maine, beautiful historic town that my oldest son and I visited around a year ago to finalize the design details of our cabinetry. We work directly with Dylan from Kennebec Cabinetry to design everything on paper. Then we actually went to the showroom where we got to see the little details that would really make this space feel like our custom design, feel like home, have some beautiful handcrafted details. So the way that the design process worked with Kennebec is first we met several times online to talk about our goals for the space, the layout of the kitchen. We sent the cabinet designer a lot of inspiration pictures and a copy of our build plans. So together we could figure out how to fully utilize the space. When I visited their shop in Bath, Maine, we talked about the little details, the hinges, the hardware, the fronts of the cabinets, and the little details there. I got to see in person the stain colors, the paint colors, and really get a feel for how everything would come together in their showroom. When I was in the showroom, we also talked about adding some little hidden details that would make these cabinets a lot more functional. So for example, in our pantry room, we have a bake station, and in order to give us more space to function in there, we made cabinet doors that actually retracted back. That was somebody from Kennebec's idea, and I really liked it when we talked about it. Another detail that I think is really cool is we have a spice rack actually built into the cabinet that's close to the stove. So I've never had a great place to store spices. I've found places and it's worked out just fine, but it's really nice having this detail. So I have all of my spices nicely organized, or at least organized-ish. The potential is for sure there. We also added silverware sorters in 2 different spots. Since we have a large family and I really plan to host over the years my kids' spouses and all of my grandkids, I feel like we're gonna have a large group of people here. I wanted a couple different spots where we could keep silverware so that people don't have to be bumping into each other in the kitchen. So we put one over in this hutch, which I cannot wait to talk more about, and then one really close to the dishwasher and the stove. So that way it's very quick to unload the dishwasher. As far as the dishwasher, we did work with Kennebec as well to design a panel that makes our dishwasher disappear. So it fits in with this cute little nook of cabinetry here by the window and the kitchen sink and the range. And it's a dishwasher, but it looks more like a cabinet. For the kitchen island, I really wanted something that felt like furniture. And I browsed through Kennebec's Instagram and all of their portfolio of different kitchens that they've done. And I saw a kitchen that had a cute yellow island that looked a lot like what we have here. It didn't go all the way to the floor. It had furniture legs so that it felt more like a furniture piece. I wanted the kitchen to be very functional, so I wanted a lot of cabinetry, a lot of storage, but I also wanted it to sort of have an unfitted vibe. So that's why I went with a turned leg island, which it is massive. So we have so much space here for prep and for serving. And then we also did a freestanding table in the pantry as well as a freestanding wood range, all to kind of have the vibe of an unfitted kitchen. Moving over to this piece, this was something that Dylan from Kennebec and I worked together in designing. I was very inspired when I went to an Airbnb in Pella, Iowa. We stayed in a Victorian home, and they had a large wall like this, and they had a hutch on it. So when we first started designing the cabinetry, I was very hesitant to have a large hutch because I thought that it would just be obvious that it was new because there's a very large space, very large hutch. So I had Kennebec shrink down the design of the hutch. But then when I saw that built-in hutch in that old house, I noticed that in order to make it not look like one big massive hutch, they kind of had it divided in 3 sections so that it felt almost like 3 hutches kind of put together. So it didn't feel too large, it actually felt proportionate. And so then we went back to the drawing board, version, I don't know, ABCD, what we were on at that point, to add this to the plans, and I'm really glad that we did. This gives us so much functionality. We have a ton of small drawers, which I wanted this to have the look of an old oak piece. And a lot of those pieces have a lot of drawers. So we have drawers here put right at the top of the hutch, and those are great because we keep things like batteries, cords, those kind of things that you have to find a space for. This is the perfect piece for that because it's kind of out of the way of the main flow of the kitchen, but also very accessible. And then we have some large drawers that we put in things like supplements, first aid. This is a hardworking cabinet. I also love, and I don't even know how they do this. Kennebec, how do you do this? There is wavy glass in the doors, and so it truly looks old. Another detail that I saw in their showroom that I really wanted to add once I saw it was the beadboard on the back of the cabinet. Now my friend Anne from Storied Interiors over on Instagram helped me to decide the color back there. We could have painted anything, and I am so glad she encouraged me to go with this ochre color because I think it just really highlights my white and blue china very well. Instead of it sitting against like a white background or blue or green, this ochre color really makes it pop. I wanted a place in my kitchen to store a lot of food. Now you might think that's the pantry. The room that we call a pantry ended up being a place for small appliances, more prep, a great place to put things that maybe you don't want in the main kitchen. So this here, this tall cabinet behind me, it goes floor to ceiling, is perfect for storing all of our food. So canned goods, pasta. When we were having a design meeting about this kitchen, I made sure that these would be wide enough to fit my 5-gallon buckets, that all across the bottom, I could have my whole grain stored in 5-gallon buckets. So really making this kitchen work for us and our lifestyle was the goal, and I think we accomplished it. Now Kennebec has their inspired collections, which is what I did here in the kitchen and the pantry room. But then I also worked with them to do Simply Kennebec in the mudroom because I wasn't as concerned with like the exposed hinges and some of the details, but it is still gorgeous, super functional cabinetry that fits perfectly for the space, which is exactly what I wanted. Another thing that I think is really cool about Kennebec, and is very in keeping with our historic looking kitchen design, is that they'll do hand painted cabinetry. So when I look close, I can see the brush strokes. I actually think that's really cool. It feels more handmade and charming. This bright sunny room, the pantry, is one of my favorites in the house. One of the great things about working with Kennebec is they actually come out after the house is framed and do some measurements. So my cabinet designer Dylan actually came out and did the measurements. If there's anything I've learned during the build process, it's that things can look one way on paper, but then turn out a little bit of a different way when it actually comes to the completed projects. So in order to not have any surprises, for everything to fit perfectly when the cabinets were completed, someone did come out and actually measure after the house was framed. So long before it was done, but after it was framed, so that way everything fit perfectly. Now this room was a bit unique because we were trying to do this new old house. We made the entire back section of the house like a porch that was windowed in. So this pantry, and this is why it's not actually a pantry, it's a place where we do a lot of prep because it's not the best place to store food when there's a ton of windows, but don't worry, there's still so many other functions for this room, and that tall cabinet's really great for an actual pantry. But this room is full of windows, which means that we had to make the cabinetry work in that situation. So one little detail we did was we didn't have this one go all the way over to the wall, so you can still get to the window there. And then we also made a table that goes in front of the windows. And in order to make it function, we had to actually make it taller than the window. So it's cool because it looks like a table that we found for this space, and there's actually a windowsill behind the table. We're also able to put a sink in here, which we find useful a lot of times because if someone is at the sink doing dishes or something and I want to wipe the table or clean something in here, I have that sink to work with, which has been really nice. In this room, we also do have the fridge freezer. We did do panel ready. Now, originally I was going to do all the cabinets the same color, but my friend Anne from Storied Interiors suggested to do it different, and I actually love that idea. I don't know why I hadn't thought of it before. So the cabinetry in here is Cruel Tan, and then in the main kitchen it's Dorset Cream. Now, I made a post over on my blog that has all of the sources, paint colors, and all the things that we source for this house. I find myself adding to it all the time because people will say, hey, where'd you get this? And I completely forgot to add that. So check back, I will leave that linked below. The easy way to find it is if you go to farmhousehomeboom.com and you click on About Lisa, I have it linked on that page. Something about we're building a new old farmhouse, you click on that, and then I have all the sources. So if you want a list of colors, including the cabinets, that is there. Now in this space, we left this wall completely open to source something actually antique. I had this table that I found on Facebook Marketplace many years ago, and it works perfect here. It's counter height, so we end up putting a lot of fruit here. It's a good dropping zone to go from putting things here into the fridge freezer. Even though this wasn't made for this space, it really kind of seems like it was. It's perfect. Another little detail in here I love is at the base of this baker cabinet, there is detail at the bottom that makes it feel like a furniture piece. Again, we wanted it to have sort of an unfitted feel, even though it's really technically not an unfitted kitchen, and having those little details really helps with that. To say I'm happy with the way our kitchen turned out is an understatement. I have a lot more I want to do in this space. I'm on the hunt for a runner rug, something vintage or antique between the island and the range. I want some bar stools for this island because we left it open on one side and then there's drawers and cabinets on the other, so we can actually push bar stools under here. I want to do some curtains on the windows, maybe find some art, I don't know, but I love the way it turned out. I think it serves our family very, very well. And I do want to say thank you to Kennebec for partnering with me on this kitchen. I will leave a link to Kennebec below if you are thinking about designing a kitchen that will work excellent for your family and you want that custom touch. I was so happy with our experience and I love the way it turned out.